Picture this scenario, because I bet almost everyone watching this has felt it in the pit of their stomach at least once. It's 7:45 a.m. You're driving to work, maybe running 3 minutes late, mentally calculating if you have enough gas to make it until Friday. And then, it happens. A tiny orange glow appears on your dashboard, the check engine light. Your heart doesn't just sink, it hits the floor. You know, logically, that if you take the car to a mechanic right now, it's probably a sensor or a spark plug. It's a $300 fix. But you open your banking app and reality stares back at you. You have exactly $42.17 to your name. Rent was due yesterday, and the utility bill is sitting on the counter like a ticking time bomb. So you do what millions of people are forced to do every single day. You ignore it. You turn up the radio to drown out that rhythmic metallic rattling noise coming from under the hood. You pray to a God you haven't spoken to in years that the car just holds together for one more week. But physics doesn't care about your prayers. 2 months go by, that $300 part eventually fails, and it takes the entire transmission with it. Now you're stranded on the shoulder of a rain-slicked highway at 11 p.m. You need a tow truck. That's $200. The repair bill? It's no longer $300. It's $2,800. And because you can't get to work for the next 3 days, you lose your shifts. That's another $400 in lost wages. In the end, your inability to pay $300 in October has spiraled into a $3,400 catastrophe in December. This isn't just bad luck. This isn't a random series of unfortunate events. This is a mathematical trap. It is the distinct, measurable, and suffocating cost of not having money. My name is Adrian, and I spend way too much time looking at the invisible equations that keep the majority of the population stuck on a high-speed hamster wheel that leads nowhere.
If you listen to the typical financial guru on TikTok, they'll tell you that wealth is a result of hustle and poverty is a result of buying too many avocados. They want you to believe that if you just canceled Netflix, you'd be the next Warren Buffett. But that advice is worse than useless. It's a lie that ignores a fundamental economic reality known as the Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. This theory didn't come from a Wall Street analyst. It came from a character named Sam Vimes in a Terry Pratchett novel. And it explains the global wealth gap better than any PhD thesis I've ever read. The theory is simple. Imagine two men. One earns $100,000 a year, the other earns $25,000. The wealthy man goes to a high-end store and buys a pair of $50 boots. These are high-quality leather, double-stitched, with a sole that can be replaced. These boots will last him 10 years. For a decade, his feet are dry, he is comfortable, and his total investment is $50. Now look at the man earning $25,000. He needs boots for work, but he doesn't have $50. He only has $10. So he goes to a discount store and buys the only boots he can afford, cheap, cardboard-soled, glued-together junk. These boots fall apart after 6 months of rain and snow, so he has to spend another $10, and another, and another. By the end of those 10 years, the poor man has spent $200 on boots. He has spent 4 times as much as the rich man, and yet, for that entire decade, his feet were wet and cold. The rich man is dry, comfortable, and $150 richer. This is the central paradox of the modern economy. The less money you have, the more everything costs. Being broke isn't a lack of discipline, it's a mathematical penalty. You are literally forced to pay a premium for your lack of capital. And once you see this Boots theory in action, you realize it isn't just about footwear. It is the operating system of our entire society. Let's take the Boots theory and apply it to something as mundane as toilet paper or laundry detergent. This is where we see the inventory trap. If you have a stable income and a car, you drive to Costco or Sam's Club. You have the liquidity, the extra cash, to spend $40 on a massive 48-roll pack of toilet paper. Because you bought in bulk, your cost per roll is about 80 cents. You are now set for months. You have successfully used your wealth to lower your future cost of living. But if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have $40 to lock up in toilet paper inventory. You have $6, so you walk to the corner store or the bodega. You buy a 4-pack for $6. Your cost per roll, it's $1.50. You are paying nearly 100% more for the exact same product. Why? Simply because you couldn't afford the entry fee to buy it cheaper. This happens with everything: diapers, coffee, canned goods, toothpaste. The math is brutal. If you are broke, your personal rate of inflation is technically higher than a wealthy person's. While the billionaire is buying a year's supply of soap at a 40% discount, you are buying a single bar every week at the highest possible price. This is the poverty premium. You are being punished for not having enough space in your budget to save money. Your lack of storage, your lack of transportation, and your lack of an initial $40 are all being monetized by the companies you buy from. They aren't just selling you a product, they are charging you a tax for being poor. If you want to see the most efficient wealth transfer machine in the history of the world, don't look at the stock market. Look at your local bank. The banking system is designed with a very specific, invisible filter. It is built to reward you for having money and punish you for not having it. If Adrian walks into a bank with $1 million, the manager greets him with a smile. He gets a dedicated wealth advisor. Every fee is waived. He gets free checks, free wire transfers, and high interest rates on his deposits. He is treated like royalty because his capital is useful to the bank. But let's look at the other side. Let's say you're struggling. You have $22 in your checking account. You're waiting for your paycheck to hit on Friday. But on Wednesday, a subscription you forgot about, maybe a $25 gym membership or a Netflix bill, hits your account. You are now negative $3. Does the bank say, "Hey, looks like you're having a tough week, we've got your back"? No. They hit you with a $35 overdraft fee. Stop and do the math with me. You effectively borrowed $3 from the bank for 48 hours, and it cost you $35. That is an annual percentage rate, APR, of over 5,000%. If a guy in a dark alley with a leather jacket charged you those rates, he'd be arrested for usury. When a bank does it, it's standard operating procedure. In the United States alone, banks pull in over $9 billion a year in overdraft fees. This money isn't coming from the millionaires. It is coming almost exclusively from the bottom 20% of earners, the people who can least afford to lose $35. It is a poverty tax that funds the marble lobbies and corporate jets of the banking elite. You are being charged for the sin of being broke, and that charge makes it even harder to ever stop being broke. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy written in red ink. We've talked about the math of dollars, but we haven't talked about the most expensive currency of all, time. There is a hidden tax on the time of the poor that rich people simply cannot comprehend. Let's look at the laundromat paradox. If you have $1,500 in a stable home, you buy a washer and dryer. Doing a load of laundry takes you 5 minutes of active work. You throw it in, you walk away, you come back an hour later. Your time cost is negligible. But if you are living in an apartment that doesn't provide machines and you can't afford the $1,500 entry fee for your own set, you have to go to a laundromat. Now, it doesn't just cost you $8 in quarters. It costs you 2 hours of your life. You have to bag the clothes, travel there, wait for the cycle, move them to the dryer, and travel back. If you value your time at even a basic minimum wage of $15 an hour, that load of laundry didn't cost you. If you do 2 loads a week, you are paying over $3,000 a year in lost time just to have clean socks. This is the time tax. The poor have to sell their time at a discount and buy it back at a premium. Think about the bus. A rich person drives 15 minutes to work in a car they own. A poor person takes 2 buses and a train, taking 90 minutes. That's 2.5 hours of unpaid labor every single day just to exist. By the time the poor man gets home, his cognitive bandwidth, his mental energy is completely exhausted. Studies show that extreme financial stress actually lowers your functional IQ by 13 points. You aren't lazy or unmotivated. You are literally operating a brain that is running out of RAM because it's so busy calculating survival. This mental exhaustion is why people make bad decisions like eating fast food or skipping the gym. It's not a lack of character, it's a lack of energy.
Now we reach the final boss of the boots theory: housing. In the modern economy, your shelter is either an asset that builds your wealth or a liability that drains it. There is no middle ground. Let's look at the math of renting versus owning. A wealthy person has $40,000 for a down payment. They buy a house. Their mortgage might be $1,800 a month. But here is the secret. A huge chunk of that $1,800 isn't spent. It's stored. Every month, they build equity. After 30 years, they own a $500,000 asset. They have effectively housed themselves for free in the long run. Now look at the person who cannot save that $40,000 because they are busy paying the poverty premiums we talked about. They are forced to rent. Because they are risky, the landlord charges them $2,400 a month for an apartment that is worth much less than the house. Rent is 100% interest. You get zero equity. You are literally paying your landlord's mortgage plus his profit margin. You are paying $600 more per month to own 0% of the asset. Over 10 years, the renter has spent $288,000 and has nothing but a pile of receipts. The owner has spent $216,000 and has $150,000 in equity. The gap between them isn't just $72,000 in cash, it's the freedom to say no. The homeowner can take out a line of credit to start a business. The renter is one notice to vacate away from homelessness. Renting is the ultimate expression of the boots theory. You are forced to pay more for a lower quality existence simply because you didn't have the lump sum of capital to exit the system. You aren't just renting a roof, you are renting your very stability.
If you want to see the boots theory translated into a digital algorithm, look no further than your credit score. In theory, the FICO score is a measure of trustworthiness. In practice, it is a tool that allows the financial system to charge you more for the simple fact that you have less. Think about the interest rate ladder. A wealthy person with an 800 credit score walks into a car dealership. Because the bank trusts them, they get a 3% interest rate. They are effectively using the bank's money for almost nothing. Now look at Adrian or anyone else walking in with a 580 score, not because they are a bad person, but because 3 years ago they had a medical bill they couldn't pay, or they missed a credit card payment during a layoff. Because of that risk profile, the bank doesn't just charge them a little more, they charge them 24% interest. On a $20,000 car, the person with good credit pays $4,500 in interest. They are buying the same car from the same factory, but the poor man is paying $12,500 more for it. That $12,500 is the risk premium. It is a penalty for being vulnerable. And where does that $12,500 go? It doesn't disappear. It flows directly into the profits of the bank, which then uses those profits to give the rich man a cash-back bonus on his credit card. It is a reverse Robin Hood system. The poor are literally subsidizing the rewards of the rich. But it gets even more predatory when we look at payday loans. In areas where banks have closed their branches, what we call banking deserts, payday lenders are the only option. They charge APRs of 400% to 600%. They aren't lending you money to help you, they're buying a claim on your future labor. They know that once you take that first $500 loan, you will likely need another one next month to pay back the first one. This is what I call debt gravity. Once you fall below a certain credit threshold, the system stops trying to help you grow and starts trying to harvest you. Your poverty becomes a high-yield asset for a subprime lender. You aren't a customer to them, you are a crop to be reaped. We've talked about cars, houses, and credit, but the most brutal expression of the boots theory is written in your very DNA. Poverty has a biological price tag. Let's look at the dentist paradox. If you have $200 and insurance, you go for a cleaning twice a year. You find a tiny cavity. It costs $100 to fix. The problem is solved permanently. But if you are broke, you don't waste $200 on a cleaning. You use that money for groceries. You ignore the slight, dull ache in your molar because you have to. Because you couldn't afford the entry fee of a cleaning, you're forced to pay a 3,500% markup for the privilege of not being in pain. But it's deeper than just teeth. Constant financial stress floods your body with cortisol, the stress hormone. In small doses, cortisol helps you run away from a tiger. In permanent doses, it destroys your immune system, raises your blood pressure, and causes cognitive aging. Being poor makes you age faster. It makes you get sick more often. And because you are sick, you miss work. Because you miss work, you lose money. And because you lose money, you can't afford the medicine to get well. This is the biological feedback loop of misery. The system relies on the fact that your body is a machine that eventually breaks under the pressure of being broke. A rich person spends money on a personal trainer and organic kale to keep their machine running perfectly. A poor person is forced to use high fructose fuel and zero maintenance until the engine explodes. You aren't just paying more for boots and rent, you're literally paying with years of your life. The ultimate boots theory reality is that the rich live, on average, 10 to 15 years longer than the poor. Poverty is a slow-motion terminal illness.
By now, you should be angry. You should be frustrated at the math. But anger without an exit strategy is just more stress. So how do we break the equation? How does Adrian help you stop paying the poverty premium? You have to understand that the first step out of the trap isn't investing in the stock market. If you have credit card debt at 24%, the S&P 500's 8% return is a joke. The first step is attacking the penalties themselves. I call this building the boot buffer. Standard advice says save $1,000 for an emergency. I say save $1,000 specifically to buy your way out of the boots theory. Use that first $1,000 to buy in bulk. Move from the $1.50 toilet roll to the 0.40 one. You just gave yourself a 300% return on that money. Preventative maintenance. Fix the $300 sensor before it becomes a $3,000 transmission. Insurance optimization. Increase your deductible. If you have $1,000 in the bank, you can handle a higher deductible, which lowers your monthly premium. You are using your liquidity to force the insurance company to charge you less. You have to look at your life not as a series of expenses, but as a series of vampire leaks. Every late fee, every overdraft, every convenience fee is a drop of blood. Your goal for the next 90 days is to plug one leak at a time. You don't buy the nice thing to feel normal. You buy the quality thing to stay dry. It takes 10 times as much energy to get from $0 to $10,000 as it does to get from $10,000 to $100,000. Why? Because at 0, the wind is in your face. At $10,000, you've finally bought the boots that don't leak. You've stopped paying the poor tax. This journey is a war of attrition. The system is betting that you will give up, that you will buy the lottery ticket, that you will spend the $50 on a dinner just to forget the stress for an hour. Don't give them that satisfaction. Get obsessed with the math. Become a bad customer for the banks. Become a bad customer for the predatory lenders. My name is Adrian, and I'm telling you, the exit is through the numbers. If this video shifted your perspective, share it. Let's start a movement of people who refuse to pay the poverty premium ever again.
Subscribe, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one. We have traveled through the dark valleys of the modern economy. We've looked at the $300 engine light that spirals into a $3,000 disaster. We've dissected the boots theory and seen how the man with $10 spends more than the man with $50. We've looked at the predatory architecture of the banking system, the crushing time tax of the laundromat, and the biological erosion of chronic financial stress. But now we have to face the most uncomfortable truth of all. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed. The economy of 2025 does not want you to be a wealthy owner. It wants you to be a perfect consumer. A perfect consumer is someone who earns just enough to stay in the game, but not enough to change the rules. A perfect consumer is someone who is so exhausted by the time tax that they buy the $15 fast food meal instead of the $2 home-cooked one. They are someone who is so desperate to feel normal that they lease a car they can't afford, effectively paying a 24% status tax to a bank that doesn't know their name. Escaping this trap is not an act of budgeting, it is an act of rebellion. When you decide to buy the $50 boots that last 10 years instead of the $10 ones that last 6 months, you are committing a crime against a system that relies on your constant repetitive spending. When you build that $1,000 boot buffer and stop paying overdraft fees, you are effectively taking food out of the mouth of a predatory lender. This is why it feels so hard. This is why it feels like the wind is always in your face. You are swimming against a current of multi-billion-dollar algorithms designed to keep you broke. But here is the secret Adrian wants you to take home. The math is neutral. The same math that creates debt gravity and pulls you down can be flipped to create wealth momentum. The first $1,000 you save to stop the poverty premiums is the most important money you will ever handle. It is the escape velocity of your financial life. Once you stop paying the poor tax, you suddenly find that you have a surplus, and that surplus, when invested in quality assets rather than disposable junk, begins to grow. You start to move from the consumer side of the ledger to the owner side. Instead of paying the interest that funds the rich man's cashback, you become the person receiving the dividends. Instead of renting your shelter, you own the equity. Instead of selling your time at a discount, you use your capital to buy your time back. This journey is not fast, it is not flashy. It doesn't look like a get-rich-quick ad on YouTube. It looks like choosing a used Toyota over a flashy lease. It looks like buying the 48-pack of toilet paper and feeling a quiet sense of victory because you know you just saved 300% on your long-term costs. It looks like the boring discipline of a detective solving the mystery of their own life. The economics of misery only has power over you as long as you remain invisible to the math. Once you see the equations, the trap loses its teeth. You realize that you aren't bad with money, you've just been playing a game where the rules were hidden from you. Today, the rules are no longer. Go out there, audit your leaks, build your buffer, buy the boots that last, stop playing their game and start building yours. My name is Adrian, and I spend way too much time thinking about this because I want to see you walk right out of that hole and into the light of real mathematical freedom. If this journey changed how you see the world, then our mission here is a success. Share this with one person who is currently stuck on the wheel. Let's break the cycle together. Subscribe, stay focused, and I will see you in the next chapter of the portfolio. Freedom isn't a dream, it's a calculation, and it's time for you to do the math.